Hi everyone, my name is Draven. Thank you all for checking out my video. Whether you're a new follower or one of my oldest friends, I want you to know that I thank you for your love and support as I journey onward towards wellness. And that's the main idea behind these videos, my path to wellness. I am the survivor of 6 suicide attempts, 4 of which occurred between May and July of this year. On July 15th of this year, I completed suicide. Twice that night I felt my heart stop. Twice that night I felt myself stop breathing. But I am still here, and I've never been more grateful to be alive, and I've never been more grateful to be breathing. Despite 4 suicide attempts, I tenaciously and aggressively sought over 130 hours of therapy in varying forms. I've undergone 13 different tests and assessments to ensure all proper diagnoses were made. In all this, I've made 30 years of progress in a little over 4 months. I'm here on Facebook, YouTube, and soon TikTok to speak my truth, tell my story in hopes that one person feels inspired to get the help that they need. Because not one single time since July have I thought of self-harm or suicide. Help is out there. These videos may be on the long side. I am a person with autism and ADHD. I will say long story short and then proceed to recount the Declaration of Independence and chase it with the State of the Union address. Any of you that's known me for any amount of time, you are probably laughing right now because you know it's true. I can talk. Which brings me to today's video, speech. I have a literal speech disability, and I've never had my own voice. And I'm going to explain what that means for me and why it's happened and how I came to have the beautiful voice that you hear now. You may see that I've been looking down. That's because I've scripted myself. I do have a tendency to go off track, and I've been known to straight up forget what I'm saying. I have a 2 to 4 minute attention span, which is normal with someone with ADHD. And there are times when once that bouncing ball is gone, it's gone. Sayonara, see you later. So notes help me keep me on track and focused. It's part of my mind mapping that I am using to manage my ADHD symptoms. I am later in life diagnosed with both autism and ADHD. Learning what it means for me, and not just my life now, but my life that has been a beautifully hard process. But with that is my speech disability. Now, you may ask the same question I've received countless times. How can you have a speech disability when you talk so well? Well, talking so well is why it literally hid in plain sight my entire life. As a child, I used to stutter a lot. As you can imagine, I was ridiculed for this. It was something that I could not stop. So I literally beat it out of myself. Every time I would stutter, I would go into the bathroom and bang my head on the wall repeatedly. I was fighting something that was natural to me, fighting my own being just for being me. But it's deeper than stuttering. Whoops. Sometimes I'd say words or sentences I knew I wasn't meant to. I was never able to process this fast enough. Sometimes only half of what I intended to say would come out. Sometimes I'd leave out a word, but that word was often so critical it would have altered the entire message completely. I am a person with autism. Social and even familial settings readily confuse us and often overstimulate us. We attempt to anticipate reactions and predict outcomes based off our sometimes ill-perceived notion of the actual circumstance. We get lost in details and have a seriously hard time seeing the big picture. And more importantly, we also have a hard time putting ourselves in someone else's shoes. We are in our own little world sometimes, and it is very easy to get lost in there. I knew my whole life I didn't talk right. I've done therapy for it. But without knowing the root cause, my then undiagnosed autism, therapy could only do so much. What therapy didn't fix, movies did. I learned to mimic speech patterns like many other masked autistics. I knew I would memorize speech patterns from movies. And if you've known me for any good duration of time, you're chuckling again because you know I speak in memes, movie quotes, and philosophy quotes. We do this because we feel that's how people speak in movies is akin to societal norm. If it's cool in Hollywood, well, maybe it will make me look normal. Because that's all I wanted, to look and sound normal. I knew I wasn't. I've known my entire life that I was different. Even with my adoptive mother, when she first saw me, she said, "I knew you weren't a normal child." And even in my native Berks County, I would get asked all the time, "Where is your accent from?" And I'd answer honestly, I don't know. But it's because it was a little bit of MASH, a little bit of Marvel, a little Batman, a little Star Trek, and so on. More, as I got older, I began taking on the speech patterns of people I knew. People that I knew people liked. I had a paramedic I used to work with. He was a very strong medic, proud Army veteran, very compassionate, and very powerful presence. You couldn't help but love and respect him. So I copied his body language, accents, and speech patterns. Obviously, it didn't work on me. The more that problem compounded, the more my internals were going haywire. I knew I had resting dick face. I warn people all the time, my tone and facial expressions will betray my inner emotions and meanings. But it's hard to hear that when you consider some of the things that I was saying, or how I was saying them. And I could never stop myself. There were even times the polar opposite of what I was trying to say would come falling out of my mouth. I couldn't process it, and I couldn't put it all together, because when you do, you have a 43-year-old who's never even heard his own voice before, one purely of my own. I've been doing speech therapy for 4 months, and I use an AI voice coaching app. I've been practicing it by doing what I do best, talking. And I talk to myself constantly throughout the day, especially if I'm alone. If I'm not, I will still talk to myself, especially if I need to work through something, or even to use my CBT methods to calm myself down. And now I can speak more clearly, concisely, and directly. I can still be blunt, but I'm more mindful of how I present it now. I don't fight my stutter anymore. You may hear me get hung up on certain parts of words. Sometimes you'll also hear me use double negatives, like I can't, I cannot, I cannot. That's to stress and emphasize that particular statement. I also do, and I can never pronounce this word, echolalia, where I will repeat words that I hear other people saying, usually because it sounds good and it vibrates well in my throat. And it's because of all this that I do this so loudly and proudly in my beautiful new voice. It's the only one I'm ever going to speak in again. And I also want to make a mention of this. So one of the main areas of the brain that's affected by the diagnoses I have is the prefrontal lobe and the prefrontal cortex. In addition to dopamine control, which also controls willpower, and where executive function is controlled, it's also where speech and communication are controlled. The therapies and treatments I do strengthen the PFC and even create new neural pathways in it. This paved the way for improvement in my speech patterns and mannerisms, etiquette, and proper responses versus reactions. I will never talk normal, but I can definitely say I talk more acceptably and respectfully, and definitely lovingly now. I love you all. Thank you all for having me. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for being you just as you are in this moment right now. And I have to close with this. I have hurt many people with the words I've said and how I've said them. If you are one of them, I want you to know how deeply sorry I am. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry it's affected you. I am sorry.